boarding a southbound manifest headed for Long Beach at Saco. Hey, hon. Look at this video here real quick. Come on. That's the train that hit the tree up north of Seattle. That's inside it. Can you imagine sitting in that engineer's seat, which you could see in the video, and having that thing come through your window? It'll go back and show it again real quick here. There's the engineer's seat.
because there are developments coming. A manhunt is underway in New York City for a killer. The chief executive of United Healthcare Insurance, Brian Thompson, was shot twice. He was standing outside a landmark Hilton hotel in the middle of Manhattan. Now here's the development. We're told to stand by now for a news conference at any moment by New York City Police. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The CEO of United Healthcare Insurance was gunned down just before the company's annual investor meeting. Sources are telling Fox News they believe he was targeted. Alexis McAdams, with the facts that we know right now. Alexis.
Hi, Harris. So we are going to hear from the NYPD in about a half hour or so. As for what details are going to be able to share, might be a little early. This is what I can tell you. Breaking down what happened here outside in Midtown Manhattan, just earlier this morning. Okay, we're talking about an American CEO walking near that Hilton Hotel behind me with a masked gunman who was also wearing gloves, I'm told, had rolled up on a bicycle. Okay, gets off, sees the CEO, shoots him not once but twice, once right in the chest. I'm going to move out of the way so you can kind of see what's going on. We've got two different cameras down here so you can kind of see some of the different angles. The officers have been kind of coming and going. They brought in some NYPD crime scene units and some new vehicles to try and piece through exactly what they have. Just a short time ago, the New York Post putting out exclusive surveillance photos from outside of the Midtown Hotel where this United Healthcare CEO was killed, okay? It kind of shows the man leaving on the bicycle. So we're working to get more information on those new surveillance clips, which are going to be key in this investigation. We're talking about Brian Thompson, okay, who was in New York City for this healthcare meeting. This was the United Healthcare CEO. He was having his annual meeting, getting ready around 6:45 this morning, heading out where this meeting was happening in New York City. We're trying to figure out. He walks outside and was gunned down. He was in town here, was visiting from Minneapolis area where United Healthcare is headquartered. So this was supposed to just be a run-of-the-mill meeting, kind of update on what was going on here with United Healthcare, and he ends up getting shot and killed in Midtown. Put this together, as you know, Harris, we walk around here all the time, right near Fox headquarters. This is probably the busiest time, right, to be in New York City right around the holidays. We got that Rockefeller tree lighting in just a matter of hours. There's going to be millions of people all across the Big Apple. So the police want everybody to know at this point, yeah, there is a manhunt underway, but they believe this was a targeted incident. I'm told by some sources they believe this was a hit job on the CEO. So they're working to get this guy behind bars and question him at least at this point as this all continues. But they don't want people who are in New York City or watching who might be coming to visit to think that there is a killer on the loose with random motive. So we'll see what happens here in about a half hour with that press conference. Harris.
Yeah, if it was a targeting, we don't know how random that motive will be, but we do know that there is a killer on the loose, and we do know that there is a news conference coming up. Great reporting, Alexis. Thank you. We'll cover it live when it happens here. The heated debate over transgender surgeries and treatments for children is now sitting at the U.S. Supreme Court. The High Court is hearing a challenge to Tennessee's ban on gender treatment for minor children. It's the first time the High Court will consider restrictions on puberty blockers or other hormone therapies. Here is now Tennessee's Senate Majority Leader.
I think we're looking for the court to hopefully affirm the right of states to be able to regulate these types of medical procedures, especially on children. We know the science is unsettled. There are potentially long-term harmful side effects of these surgeries and use of these medications. So hopefully the Supreme Court will affirm what the Sixth Circuit said and say that states do in fact have a right to protect children.
And the whole country will watch this. Tennessee is one of 25 states which have restrictions on transgender treatment for children on the books. This exploded and became part of an election issue just a few weeks ago, from what voters were telling us. A new piece points out that other liberal-leaning countries are starting to take action on the treatments as well. Here's a headline: America needs to wake up. Doctors and politicians praise England's landmark decision to ban puberty blockers for children over fears about the drug's long-term harms, as they call for similar in the United States. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes, believe it or not, the U.S. government will argue to that. The 14th Amendment means a state cannot ban transgender hormone regimens for adolescents. Perhaps that sentence looks like Jabberwocky.
Big Pharma is not telling you this. My thoughts on Ozempic, I'm very concerned. Ozempic's just another
Melanie, good morning.
Pharma to
I
make
get your
money
call
now.
for you.
What are the potential implications of the case? Those implications include access to restrooms and participation in sports. So as I mentioned to you, all of this became an election issue. Not top 3, but it was important to people as they headed to the polls on November 5th when you talked with them.
She posted
Justice correspondent
in,
David Scott has more now, David.
the family
There's
group
a lot
on
of questions flying
ASAP.
around right now
I mean,
in the Supreme Court chamber. Arguments began about an
WhatsApp.
hour ago, still very
That,
much underway until today. The justices
Ozzy
have not
Osbourne
weighed in on the
birthday was
constitutionality of
on
state
our
efforts to
anniversary
regulate
day.
transgender medical procedures for
And
minors
he
and
turned
other sexually assigned
76,
treatment. The case originates
and he thought it was a
out of
picture of
Tennessee involved
Melinda.
the treatment of puberty blockers, other hormone therapies. This Tennessee law bans medical
So
care
when you
for
go to
transgender
WhatsApp, you'll see a
adolescents.
picture
In
of Melinda.
2023, Donald Trump's campaign
It
promised
does-
to ban treatment for adolescents
minus the
nationally,
tattoos.
while banning Harris Medicare and Medicaid insurance coverage for such care. Groups for and against the law have been outside the Supreme Court for several hours.
She's-
A passionate issue because
think
this
she's
case
about
will have
77.
implications that extend well past the borders of the state of Tennessee, a broad effect in all 50 states, and go past the walls of even a medical facility. Think about
Always likes to
transgender
lay
protections in sports,
hang
access
on.
to bathrooms in high schools. Here's Chloe Colvin, activist against gender reassignment surgery or gender affirming care, who detransitioned. Watch.
This medical ideology was something that consumed most of my adolescent formative years, and I've lost parts of my body. I was on puberty blockers at 13, cross-sex injections, cross-sex hormone injections, and I underwent a double mastectomy to remove my breast when I wasn't even old enough yet to drive a vehicle.
LGBTQ groups have eyes on President Biden in his final weeks in office to see if he'll maybe issue some sort of executive order or blanket protection that does not involve what is now a fractured Congress. The White House has touted his work with the LGBTQ community in the past, but many are worried as a new administration is coming to town and 3 Trump-appointed justices.
Well, of course, if he does,
Will
it
happen.
only lasts until Trump gets in office and rescinds it, right?
Likely late spring from the High Court.
That's the thing about
David, thank you very
executive
much. I want
orders.
to bring in now Leo Terrell, attorney and Fox News
Trump
contributor.
is going to at least claim one more
So tell me, what are the
justice,
legal issues
probably.
around these treatments for minors?
I'll tell you right now, Harris, and with all due respect to the other countries in Europe, this deals with the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, equal protection. Here's the question. Does this rise to giving transgenders equal protection under the 14th Amendment? Why is that important? Because it will determine the analysis by the Supreme Court on how they look at the Tennessee law. I'll give you an example. Is it a rational law for like driver's license, or is there a constitutional interest where the state of Tennessee must be very tailored in limiting rights if these rights are constitutional? And the rippling effect of that decision, whether or not it's a constitutional question or not, it will impact, as you correctly stated, every state and go beyond transgender surgeries. It will deal with sports and everything. This is historic.
So, at the heart of this, though, the puberty blockers are dangerous. And they're dangerous because many of them, at least one in particular, was made for prostate cancer. And I've had Dr. Mark Siegel explain this in depth in a seat right next to me on the program and say, look, it makes for brittle bones in young ones. It really is complicated to give a child a drug that was meant for an adult for something far afield from what they're treating that child for. He likes the idea of more of the mental health type of approach where we wait, we see what's going to happen, we treat some of what's going on in that end, we work with the parents. He has said that the complicating factor, and here's my question for you, Leo, we're not just talking about blanket freedoms for adults, these are children. They're not making their own decisions.
And you just articulated a compelling reason that the state should articulate to justify why this law is valid. Because it's narrowly tailored. It's to protect young children from a long range.
Right. You'll never pay for Netflix again after seeing this.
Netflix and Apple pray you never find out about this. This tiny device lets you stream movies from any premium platform or paid channel without the costly monthly fees. Just stick it into your TV's HDMI port and you're ready to go. It's called TV Smart, a tiny TV stick that once plugged in lets you access every single channel and streaming platform you can think of in one place. Imagine having access to cable, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, HBO, Spotify, and the rest without paying any monthly subscription fees. It's so good it should be illegal, but I assure you it's not. Let me break it down for you. Instead of paying for 5 different streaming platforms yourself, TV Smart lets you enjoy all those platforms without costly monthly subscriptions. It all started in 2020. Remy, a book-smart Swiss engineer who graduated 2 years ahead of his classmates. Just like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates and Elon Musk left for Silicon Valley to create the next startup. Once there, he quickly teamed up with 2 other talented engineers and set out to invent a modern and connected television for less than $100. But soon enough, the young team realized that the project was doomed to failure. The price of electronic parts made it
compelling reason that the Supreme Court has to justify and determine whether or not that law meets that test. It has to be narrowly tailored, and those are the magic words, Harris.
I want to get to this. By the way, we're watching this. You heard David Spun say this could come within the next hour, so it could happen here on the Faulkner Focus. The crowd has gotten bigger in the last little while, and they, of course, don't know what's going on inside that building in terms of timing. Could just be the time of day as we round out the noon hour here, or up to it on the East Coast. But it is interesting how many people have a vested interest in this all over the country, as we both have been talking about. Some of them have shown up at the U.S. Supreme Court today. The Biden administration prosecuted a surgeon who spoke out about a Texas children's hospital. That facility was allegedly secretly conducting transgender treatments on minors. Dr. Ethan Hine is now facing federal charges, and he's accused of violating HIPAA privacy laws. Here's what he told Fox News a few months ago in the summer.
Standing in that courtroom and hearing those words, facing up to 10 years in federal prison is terrifying. But there's something greater to fear, and that's the fear of not doing something. What kind of world is that going to be if we don't stand up? We need to win, because if we lose, the door closes permanently on whistleblowers in the healthcare system.
So that's really heart-scratching right there. You lose in the fear of doing nothing. Because, again, part of this are children. Leo?
And that's exactly what this doctor did, a balancing test. He basically made a gamble to go to prison to save children. Again, he made a medical decision that had implications that would involve his freedom, because by disclosing this information, he violates HIPAA. HIPAA is a law that prohibits this, but he made a decision in the best interest, Harris, of children.
Another one here. One doctor says she will not publish a study that found no evidence that puberty blockers improves the mental health of child patients. What's your take on that?
I'll tell you, everything is politics. You talked about the large crowd growing there. I mean, you look at this as a political decision that the Supreme Court is going to have to make regarding what happens with young children and the 14th Amendment. The rippling effect, Harris, is that there's a lot to be gained by certain interests as to the outcome of this particular case, and that's the problem. The Supreme Court hopefully is above the law, above all the politics, and will rule on the constitutionality of this.
Okay, well, there's the politics, and there's also just plain cash money. And the pharmaceutical companies obviously benefit too to some degree. I mean, if you can sell your prostate drug for something else, I mean, as sad as it may sound that children would be the victims, I don't think that that's been calculated in the boardroom. Look, I do want to talk about the wording of how the study put it. Blockers didn't help mental health, the puberty problem. That to me, as a mom says, if you're not helping, you're hurting. So how does the law look at it?
Right. Well, the law will look at it in the sense that it's not a viable alternative. She concealed that report, in my opinion, to hide that type of information. It is to deny the existence of what actually works and what doesn't work. And I think that's what she did it for.
Can we just talk about basic freedom for a second? Because I had mentioned to the audience more than once over the last few months, but especially today with this issue, this became an election issue. The idea of biological men and women's bathrooms and sports and surgeries without parents knowing, for certain districts around the country. And then now this at the U.S. Supreme Court about Tennessee's push to save children's future by not exposing them to puberty blockers, by banning that. So where are we in the march to freedom with all of these things going on? Because we're having to figure out some stuff that's on the plate that we have to.
That we have to, and here's the thing about it. You go back to the playing around, the manipulation of Title IX, Harris, a law that was very clearly intended to have female women play sports and separate them from men. It's been manipulated by the Biden administration. Right now, the whole issue of transgender men playing women's sport is in flux right now. That's why we go back to this transgender case, Harris, and it was going to resolve a lot of issues, at least set the foundation for having a general understanding as to what's happening with transgenders in general in this country, as to whether or not they receive equal protection under the law or not.
Leo Terrell, excellent to have you today. A lot to get into. Appreciate you as we await what the U.S. Supreme Court does next. Well,
POV. I thought this was the only thing harming my liver. A lot of people think that alcohol is the only thing that affects their liver, which is scary.
we'll give an update on the killing of the CEO of United Healthcare Insurance. It happened outside a landmark hotel in Midtown Manhattan. You may recognize it when we show the outside of the building if we have a wider shot. It is the same Hilton where the religious event, the Al Smith dinner, took place just before the election, the one that Kamala Harris as a candidate skipped, and it might have hurt her in terms of the faith vote, if you will. But that's where some people may recognize this hotel. That CEO for United Healthcare was standing outside when he was shot twice. We're waiting to hear more details. Sources are telling Fox News from NYPD that they believe the shooting was targeted. They are looking for a suspect. It's a general type of description of a man who likely got caught on some cameras down there, because there are a lot of them in the city, all over the place, especially near the Hilton area, which is right up the block from us at Fox. But they describe him as wearing a black hat and some black gloves. What was like in the low 30s, early 20s this morning. So that probably could describe a lot of people. The cameras will be important. We will take you live to that news conference when it begins to get more details. And this is coming up as well. House Democrats are pushing back on the findings of a Republican-led panel's COVID-19 investigation. The panel looked into the pandemic's origins and all of the restrictions that we live through. And really, it's the last public session today. So what comes out matters even more, because it will sit with people for quite some time. Plus, we could get a verdict in the Daniel Penny trial at any moment.
You got 12 people there. They all ride the subways. All New Yorkers. One of them says, you know what? If I was in that car, I would have been thanking Daniel Penny as well.
The jury, of course, is deliberating whether Daniel Penny is guilty of killing Jordan Neely on a New York City subway last year as he was trying to protect the people locked underground in that subway car from a man who was described as being erratic, unhinged. A live report from the courthouse, and retired NYPD Lieutenant Darren Porcher is here. As New York City police are scheduled to give an update now on the killing of United Healthcare Insurance CEO Brian Thompson. And you can see the lectern there in the middle of the screen. We're expecting that in the next few minutes. It's supposed to happen at the bottom of the hour. That's about 8 minutes from now. So we are watching it. And meanwhile, the search for the killer is on in New York City. And you know, being on edge in New York on a day when more than 1 million people will show up to a site that's maybe 4 blocks from where Brian Thompson was murdered this morning, saying that it's on edge is probably light, because we have so many tourist people who have not experienced the event like the lighting of the tree tonight, and certainly not one with a blanket of law enforcement all across the city in a different way. Not just giving directions and friendly to tourists as they always are. NYPD is the best. But now they're looking for a killer who took out a chief executive. Brian Thompson was shot twice earlier this morning outside the Hilton Hotel in the middle of Manhattan. And we are being told by sources that this was not a random act. We'll take you back here live as soon as that news conference begins. I want to bring in now Darren Porcher, retired NYPD Lieutenant and Pace University law enforcement professor. Darren, I always relish our conversations because you have such good intel on what happens on days like today. This is a big event to protect the lighting of the tree already without this. And now, a manhunt. How do they get it done?
This is a challenging narrative to say the least, Harris. And what's unique about this particular area is we refer to this as the Central Midtown Quadrant. And that area runs from 59th Street to 14th Street, river to river. We have an extremely large contingent of officers that work that particular area. In addition to that, the NYPD has a consent agreement with a lot of the retail establishments, which allows them to come into their live feeds of their cameras.
Oh, wow.
So it afforded the NYPD the ability to follow the pathway that the shooter took, where the shooter was placed hours prior to the shooting, and where he made his escape. And so that being said, it's just a matter of time, whereas the NYPD is going to leapfrog from camera to camera to find out where this assailant went. He stood outside of this hotel, which houses diplomats during the UN General Assembly on a regular basis, and he actually participated or partook this violent act, which was horrific, against the CEO of United Healthcare. I just think it's a travesty, especially as you mentioned in the earlier part. Today is the tree lighting. This is not a terrible time for something like this to happen. I don't know what is, but I'm confident that in a matter of time, he will be taken into custody.
All right, you've given us just a huge amount of information. The web, the connectability, if you will, of the grid of cameras for businesses around the city.
This portable warm air blaster will be in every home in America by 2026. It can heat a 900 square foot room from 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 73 degrees Fahrenheit in just minutes. And it's saving households tens of thousands of dollars in annual electricity bills. Mark is a jet engineer with decades of experience in jet engine technology. But his most recent discovery is saving households thousands of dollars in heating costs in countries like the Czech Republic, France, and Germany. The invention was inspired by his grandparents, who struggled to afford the high cost of heating during freezing winters. Using the Bernoulli physics principle that powers all major jet engines, Merrick engineered a way to create a perpetual heat loop, recycling the heat that's generated so none of it goes to waste. From this concept, he developed a device that's 300% more efficient than traditional heating methods and costs a fraction to run. During a live demonstration at a tech expo, his invention stunned the audience by heating a frigid room from 50 degrees Fahrenheit to a cozy 73 degrees Fahrenheit in under 90 seconds, all while using 90% less energy.
Brand new information, but it certainly sounds like important information on a day like today that I did not know the reach of. I mean, that's a lot of information. So when you say it's not a random act, how do they know that part?
For someone to post up hours before the CEO of United Healthcare was shot, it clearly shows that this was something that was a targeted attack.
And your cameras that you just told me about, that grid where you can work with those merchants and people around the city to connect, you can see those footsteps and how long this individual would have been sitting.
That's correct. From the point of the shooting, and he's traveling eastbound on 54th Street to by the Ziegfeld movie theater when he made his escape. We believe that it was a bicycle that he used to, after he was on foot, to make his departure from the scene.
You know, I want to use this as a background. Not only do we have tourists here, but we recently found out in the last years that we have 58,000 known criminals who cross our border illegally. Not that there would be any connection naturally with this, but it makes the work harder for NYPD because they're already dealing with the rampant crime from those individuals who broke our first law coming here illegally.
Yeah, absolutely correct. I'm glad that the mayor is switching his calculus and looking to deporting these people that have been arrested or have prior arrests, because the migrant crisis in New York has dilapidated the quality of life in not just Manhattan, but all the 5 boroughs. So hopefully we can get something done with the new administration to rid us of the tyranny that this migrant crisis has bestowed upon our great city of New York.
Well, and just in terms of fighting crime, it makes it hard, because these aren't just people who come here. They intend to live the life that they had before they crossed the border, and that was a life of crime. I mean, 58,000 people on the streets of Manhattan or in the 5 boroughs is a lot of people to keep up with when you're trying to lock down a crime scene that may or may not have anything to do with them, but they're roaming. They're always there. So you've got to kind of vet that situation and protect the tree and everything else and the millions of people who will be coming in and moving about the city later tonight. I want to bring in Leo Terrell, attorney and Fox News contributor, and have both Darren and Leo with me on this one. We're about to hear an update now from NYPD. Leo, what things are we looking for when you hear random act is not something that they even suspect at this point? Talk to me about the law.
Oh, I'm looking at planning and premeditation in the sense that this CEO was gunned down. Darren talked about the fact that this guy was there prior to the CEO arriving. I'm also looking at the idea of whether or not he had partners involved. He had a bicycle, he had equipment, he had things that he utilized to execute this individual. So I'm looking at whether or not the police department, and I'm sure the district attorney is collecting this information. You raised one other point, Harris. You talked about the grid, which Darren talked about. A lot of cities have this grid where there's this cooperation, but New York City is a sanctuary city. Question mark, this guy had a mask on. Question mark as far as the cooperation that's going to take place involving this individual. We don't know his ethnicity. We don't know his legal status. There's a lot of other questions that the prosecution, the district attorney is going to have to feather out.
Wow, that's really chilling act. But you know, there was a time when you couldn't wear a mask in the city because they were worried that criminals were getting away. I don't know, I don't live here, I live in Jersey, but I work here, so I get the alerts on my phone. And I'm thinking, well, but didn't they think of that during the pandemic? Like, we know that that's true. If you cover up your face, the cameras can't identify you.
You're absolutely right. Masking individuals creates a challenge for law enforcement, especially knowing that they can possibly identify by camera. The average person is photographed and videotaped in Manhattan 100 to 200 times a day. And so that really sets forth a precedence for someone, if they choose to act in surreptitious means to cover their face to prevent being taken into custody. And in addition to that, the NYPD is experiencing an extreme level of officers that are leaving, and the backfill hasn't been accomplished. So the personnel have been stretched thin, and so it presents a more challenging narrative in terms of having officers in the appropriate locations to create that level of omnipresence for the public to feel safe. But the migrant crisis, once again, has been decimating our quality of life in this great city, and that more so moves forth the challenge of trying to get these people out of our society, them being the migrants that are here illegally. And as Leo mentioned, New York is a sanctuary city. What are we going to do about this? People are paying money to fund them.
I finally got rid of my iPad. Nobody needs her 63 in this one. My friends think I got a facelift. I was skeptical it would work as fast as I was told. So, I'm ready.
Erase wrinkles into eye bags in seconds with this new $59 facelift device. It uses Nobel Prize-winning technology to stimulate the skin, removing wrinkles and fine lines at home in record time. And it's 10 times more effective than Botox and any other treatment for just a fraction of the price. It was created by Rachel
but I'm hopeful that the new administration coming in will eradicate this migrant crisis that's been plaguing our city.
All right. Let me jump in here, and I appreciate that so much. This is video of Brian Thompson from 2023. We're just starting now to get more information. The United Healthcare Insurance CEO was due to basically be doing what he's doing here. He was going to an investors meeting this morning to give the lay of the land at the end of the year to talk about this. This was last year. This is 2023. So he would have been going to this meeting, and you heard Alexis McAdams reporting. We're still trying to figure out where would that have been. So we wanted to quickly bring you that. We're going to take a quick break. Gentlemen, I'll bring you right back. And the news conference as it happens, as we're watching it, New York City jury's deliberating. And we will get to that in just a moment with Daniel Penny, because there has been a little bit of movement there. But these are brand new images. So we have two breaking news stories happening at once, and I do want to show these images. We've just got these. This is surveillance imagery from the suspect from earlier today. You know, the killing of CEO of United Healthcare Insurance outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. And we were just talking with Daniel Porcher and Leo Terrell about how many cameras there are and the grid of cameras working with merchants like Hilton and others. Give us your live feeds, and they tracked a guy who they are now looking for, and that's why they know and are telling us that this was not random. So those are the first images of the suspect. As soon as that news conference begins, you see that they're live with the NYPD lectern in the center there. All the media are in place. Everybody's seated now, so this is going to happen in a moment. But while we wait for that, I want to go to this. And back to the deliberations in the Marine veteran Daniel Penny's case. They are deliberating whether or not Penny is guilty of recklessly killing Jordan Neely, a mentally ill, homeless drug abuser, in a struggle on the subway last year. Now, it wasn't just a natural struggle. This was a situation where witnesses say they felt threatened by erratic and threatening, saying somebody's going to die today, Jordan Neely. Penny steps in. Penny faces charges of manslaughter in the second degree and criminally negligent homicide. And if he's convicted of manslaughter, he faces 15 years in prison. He says he was protecting himself and those fellow subway riders from Jordan Neely, who was acting erratically and making violent threats, as I just mentioned to you. New York City Mayor Eric Adams here.
Now, we're on the subway where we're hearing someone talking about hurting people, killing people. You have someone on that subway who was responding, doing what we should have done as a city in the state of having a better mental health facility. Those passengers were afraid. I've been on the subway system. I know what it is as a police officer to wrestle or fight with someone. It is imperative that we look at the totality of this problem. I'm hoping that the jury will hear all the facts. Based on all the facts that's laid out, a jury of his peers will make the right decision.
CB Cotton is live for us at the courthouse in New York City. CB.
Hi, Harris. What a busy day. Well, moments ago, the jury passed a second note to the judge asking to rewatch some video evidence in this case. They want to see that 25-minute taped. He waived his Miranda rights to speak with detectives. They also want to rewatch some police body camera video. The first note was sent yesterday when jurors asked the judge to reread his instructions on how the law applies to the crime and details on the justified. Several of them appear to be listening closely, taking notes. As you mentioned, Penny faces up to 15 years if convicted on the most serious charge in the case. Eyewitnesses say Neely was hurling threats on the subway last year before Penny placed him in the chokehold. Prosecutors have called Penny's actions laudable, but in closing arguments yesterday, they told jurors good intentions can turn bad, and they reminded jurors they only have to evaluate whether Penny acted recklessly. The defense, in its closing, said prosecutors have not proven that Penny's chokehold was the direct cause of Neely's death, saying Penny is being used as a scapegoat for a broken system, and reminding jurors subway riders testified that they were thankful for Penny's actions. Oregon House Representative-elect Alex Skarlatos, who helped disarm a terrorist on a train from Amsterdam to Paris in 2015, says this case will prevent future Good Samaritans.
I think if you live in, Oregon, Washington, California, New York, you are kind of concerned that something like this could happen to you, especially if you're someone who thinks of themselves as someone who would step up. You want people to step up and try to do the right thing or not. I mean, if he, God forbid, is convicted, it's going to frighten a lot of people in blue states into action.
And while Penny faces up to 15 years if convicted, there is no minimum sentence. Harris. All right, lots of
When we got the farmer's dog, we did the first meeting and he got so excited.
In focus now, Darren Porter and Leo Terrell come back with me on this very busy breaking news day. Let's talk about the Daniel Penny case. And Darren, I want to come to you just on a couple of things. So we know from published reports that the victim was not dead on that subway when they were talking with and then took for questioning Daniel Penny. Wasn't dead yet. They questioned him. The police knew he's dead, but Daniel Penny doesn't, and he talks freely. And from that, they don't even arrest him for 10 days. Talk to me about the police work. What are they looking for that says, yeah, we need to pick this guy up at least on a 20-hour hold until we can talk to the DA? Well, what's happening?
Well, Harris, based on the initial interview with Mr. Penny, the police felt that they didn't establish probable cause for arrest. And so because probable cause was not established, there was no need to take Mr. Penny into custody. The police had a genuine understanding of, okay,
UP detector milepost 328.6.
Everything's backwards. I was trying to get back to sleep, and I got the dumbest alert from our governor ever. She wants to start up 2 new trains. One goes from Portland all the way down through Salem, down to Klamath Falls. Then you'll go up to, through Bend, Redmond, up over through the gorge, stop at several places in the gorge, including Monoma Falls, and then reconnect in Portland, and then run a complete circle. Then one will go from Portland the other way, and stop at Monoma Falls, stop at Hood River, the other way, and then run a complete circle the other way. She said that people would love to ride it, and it would be very popular.
She's got no clue. The track structure does not exist to do that. You have to turn the train in Klamath Falls.
Yeah, I know, but she said that, but she is willing to put millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to do it.
An idiot.
She's willing to put hundreds of millions of dollars into it.
And the railroads say absolutely not, and there's not a thing she can do about it.
But she said they would love to get the hundreds of millions of dollars for the upgrades.
Mi nombre es Alejandro López Martínez. Trabajo aquí en Habaneros.
So yeah, she wants to raise the taxes so we can do it.
Llegamos aquí a los Estados Unidos y mi esposa.
Yeah, I was reading that article. I was like, wait, what? That's not going to work. Even if you could upgrade, like she says, that wouldn't work because then you would have to drop the train down on that steep grade down onto the Union Pacific.
That shoe fly is seldom used, not maintained. It will cost a lot just to maintain that thing, enough to put a passenger train over it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But the problem is, like I said, Union Pacific and BNSF will say absolutely not. I don't care that you want to give us lots of money to do it. We won't do it.
Also, you don't have passenger train stations anymore in some of those areas.
Summer of 2002, she knew he was the man for her. Charlotte decided right then and there that she liked him and she was interested.
You don't have
Who in the world would get on and off the train in Metolius?
He didn't want to do anybody wrong.
There is a station there.
I want to know.
No, see, it's the whole thing about we're going to force you to not drive your cars anymore. That's what it's really part of.
She calls it her three-phase plan, and part of the phase is to upgrade the Portland and Western line as well.
For Bobby and Charlotte, moving to the Nola Mountains is the next step in building a simpler life. They're excited to join a small community living there.
And the other phase is to get a passenger train running again from Portland all the way to Pendleton.
That might work, except the thing is, it would have to go on. They would have to recreate the Pioneer, except run it out of Portland instead of Seattle, to meet up with another train in Salt Lake City or something like that. There is even Amtrak is kind of this way on that. So that might happen.
Ready to take off.
Where are you guys?
Oh yeah.
Gotta go pay the pay advance.